Hello, ladies. I hope that your day is going well and struggle love free. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time that I upload a new video. Well, I saw a story today that precipitated the need for another video. I did publish one earlier today, but this one will be being produced the same evening to be released either Thursday night or Friday, because I really wanted to talk about this subject because it is one that is near and dear to my heart in terms of leveling up from struggle love and poverty-laden relationships. So this article on Black Enterprise's website, and the story is circulating and it's on various websites, but I will reference Black Enterprise. So in the story, it is detailing and describing that LARSA Pippen, ex-wife of Scottie Pippen of the Chicago Bulls, has been awarded half of his 401k and his savings plan trust for the years 1997 through 2016. So she's getting her half. And even if the amount is not there, she's still entitled to the full amount. So it will have to be made up so that she can get her entitlement. So I thought that this was such an important topic to talk about, and I don't want to focus on LARSA Pippen in particular. This is a catalyst for a teachable moment. It is very, very, very important for us to recognize how we have been hoodwinked and bamboozled. It is very important that we recognize how we have been exploited and taken advantage of in terms of us being conditioned into the struggle love matrix so that we can reject it and renounce it. Historically, when we look at the context of Black women's work and labor, and in terms of our valuation, we know that during slavery that we were forced into indentured servitude. We were forced into slavery and that we were forced to work for free. Post-slavery, we know that during segregation, subsequently, that Black women tended to be offered the lower paying jobs that did not have advancement tracks. And we know that even today, in 2023, today is Thursday, June 22nd, 2023, and we know that even now, Black women are paid less. So as an aggregate. So historically, we have not been valued. We have been devalued, unfortunately. Our work has not been valued to the extent that it should have been. And we have not always received the opportunities, even when we have the skills, the education, and the experience. Unfortunately, what has happened is we have gone from being devalued externally to being devalued internally. And then what has happened is that we have been conditioned and we have been groomed and primed and socialized to expect that when it comes to our interpersonal relationships, when it comes to romantic relationships, that we should expect it to be tied to poverty or struggle or lack or all three of the above. So this is where we have the come up woman, the placeholder woman, the fallback woman, 50-50, the ride or die, Barbara the Builder. Variations of these things. It's very sad not only have been conditioned to this mindset, this mentality, this dynamic, and this construct, but also that we have then, unfortunately, in turn, taken it on and replicated this. So when we think about it, there is a dichotomy. There is a moving goalpost that changes for us as a demographic, unfortunately. We are expected to endure all kinds of struggles and traumas and dramas, and in relationships, we have not been socialized to expect provision and a provider and a protector as an aggregate, as a collective. Now, of course, there are exceptions. Of course, there are women that have experienced that. But when we look at the group, the aggregate of our demographic in the United States, we have not become acclimated not having to exist in poverty-laden dynamics. This has been going on from generation to generation to generation. And that's why it's so important for us to end this dynamic being perpetuated again and again, this cycle of poverty, this cycle of expectations of poverty in relationships, of struggle in a relationship, of having to go half, of having to bring something to the table, because other groups of women are not being socialized in this manner. And why should we? Why should we? We have been socialized to go 50-50, socialized to be Barbara the Builder, socialized for struggle love, socialized to expect to go without in a relationship, socialized that we got to have our own income, and that we cannot expect to have child support, alimony, to be a stay-at-home mom, that these are things that are out of our reach, that aren't accessible for us, that aren't supposed to be part of our life plan or our lifespan. Now, when we look at other groups of women, other demographics, various other women have not been socialized and conditioned to be quizzed and grilled about what you bring to the table, about 50-50, certainly not about struggle love, certainly not about she better have her own. Miss Independent. See, all of that is part of this socialization, this carryover from all of these previous generations of struggling. And it's extremely important that whether we are 60, 40, 20, whether we're generation boomer, X, Y, or millennial. But I think it's especially important for millennial women to understand you don't have to take part in the perpetuation of struggle love and of the 50-50 and of being quizzed about what do you bring to the table. For too long, there's been an expectation that we can be there when it's for the air mattress days, for the days of riding the bus, for the days of ramen with eggs in it, for the time of living in the one-bedroom apartment or the studio. But then when it's time for luxury, then that shifts to another demographic of women should be able to expect that and should be acclimated to that and should be given that, and there's no problem with it. See, that's the moving goalpost. Like, oh, you're not good enough for that, you don't deserve that. And we have to push past that mentality. We have to reject this construct and this dynamic of saving all the struggle and the drama for saving all of the poverty and the lack for us. If other women are being acclimated to this and socialized, neither should we. And a man who truly loves us and who is truly supportive of us and wants to enhance our life isn't trying to bring that as a dynamic to us. He's not coming to us like that. He's coming to us with the best version of himself. And if he's not coming with the best version, then he should be focusing on that rather than a relationship. It's really a travesty. We never became acclimated to accepting and settling these great value, low budget, substandard relationships. And keep in mind, and I want to emphasize that we can get engaged in this sort of relationship with any demographic of men. So we have to be mindful of what our standards and expectations are, because this is ultimately a spirit operating, a spirit of lack, a spirit of selfishness and exploitation. Effect. So we have to be very mindful, whatever demographic of man that we may possibly date, we need to do our investigation. We need to take our time and do our vetting and our screening and make sure that we have a firm standard and boundary and criteria in place before we think about dating. Because see, dating is supposed to be where a man is showing us what he has to offer, showing us his best self, showing us that he values us. And so that's why he's not coming to us any old kind of way. And it's important for us to take our time so we're not rushed into a relationship, love bombed into a relationship, pushed into a relationship, hoodwinked into a relationship that ultimately will not benefit us, and one where the man is not willing to truly enhance our life and he has a low expectation of what we should get in a relationship. We need to find out before we get involved with a man, what does he think my value is? Does he think I'm worthy of nice things? Or does he think that I deserve poverty and lack and struggle? Is this man someone who wants to be a husband and a father? And does he think that he should be engaged in helping his child or children to have the best life possible? Or does he think it's the mother's responsibility to raise the child in totality and have most of the financial responsibility or all of the financial responsibility? We have to do our assessment. We have to do our evaluation. We have to take our time and use our discernment and find out, is this a man that God would have us to be with? Or is he a distraction? Is he a detour? Who was he sent from? Do we need to return to sender in terms of the option of dating him? Because even when you go for a job, virtually every job is going to have you do an interview, whether it's in person, whether it's by the phone, whether it's over Zoom or Teams, but you're going to go through an interview. And it may be multiple interviews. It may be multiple rounds of interviews with more than one supervisor or manager, etc. And then we get hired. So we get hired. Even when we get hired, there's a probation period, and it may be 60 days, 90 days, 6 months. In some positions, particularly if it's a government job, you may be on probation for a year. And why does probation exist? It exists so that they can determine whether you are who you say you are, whether you are who you presented yourself in that interview, or whom your references said you were. They wanted you to show and tell. So they want to see, do you come to work every day, or do you call in sick once a week? Do you come to work on time? Do you leave early? Do you take an extra long lunch? Are you actually being very productive at work? Or do you spend a lot of time talking, a lot of time taking extra breaks? Do you spend a lot of time standing around gossiping? Do you spend a lot of time being wasteful of their resources? They want to know, are you dedicated and ambitious and strategic and focused? And that's what we need to be doing in relationships. Sis, we need to be doing our screening. And I'll talk about this very passionately because I'm tired of us as a group of women being taken advantage of. Anytime that a man does not want to give us his best, but is showing us the least productive example of himself, the least beneficial version of himself, putting in the least effort and making us do the most, that's a spirit operating that is not one that is going to enhance our life. That's a spirit of exploitation. It's certainly a mindset of being calculating, in effect, that is operating. We want to make sure we are screening so that we do not end up with a discordant relationship that is ultimately a liability and not a benefit, where we're not being loved, we're not being supported, we are not being enhanced, and one where we are going to live our most arduous, problematic, and challenging version of our life. That's not how love looks. Love isn't selfish. It isn't hostile. It doesn't try to be stingy with us. It doesn't try to make us go through hardships unnecessarily. It doesn't expect that we're going to go through challenges and poverty and lack just because. It does not give us the worst version of a person. That's not how love looks. And we certainly deserve to be loved. We can be happily single, or if we're going to be in a relationship, it's important that we're aligned with a man who is not giving us the low budget, great value version of a relationship. If other women don't have to settle for that, we shouldn't either. No matter what false narrative and what gaming has happened to us as a collective of women in the past, we deserve far better than relationships that are permeated with struggle and lack. We deserve far better than a moving goalpost or a different standard and a substandard at that says that we should never expect to receive nice things in a relationship or to be able to prosper. May we instead know that we have value. May we walk in God's purpose for our life. May we recognize our worth and experience wellness, health, stability, and peace. This has been Veronica V, and I'll see you in the next video.